Pennsylvania played an important part in America's history, and Bucks County in particular hosted one of the most famous moments of the founding of our country, Washington crossing the Delaware on December 26th of 1776. But there's also a history of high strangeness in Bucks County, including ghost stories, haunted houses, UFO sightings, and of course, Bigfoot sightings. This week, I'm looking at some of the ape-like creatures that residents have been seeing there for decades. Coming up now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. Once again, I'm in one of my favorite states, Pennsylvania. Seems like this time every year I'm in PA, Knoebels Amusement Park. I'm wearing a t-shirt from there. I'll get into that later. Gettysburg. I mean, I just love Pennsylvania and Ren fairs, all sorts of cool stuff. And it's one of the most popular, most requested areas and states for my channel. People just want me to cover Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania. So we're in Pennsylvania again this week. We're going to be covering Bucks County, which, as I mentioned in the intro, is really historical because that's where George Washington and his troops during the American Revolutionary War were stationed to cross the Delaware River and attack the British Hessian troops in Trenton. And they won that battle and drove the Hessians out. Washington's Crossing is still there. It's a really cool place. Rebecca and I went there December 26th, the day after Christmas this past year, to see a reenactment of it, and they couldn't do it because the water levels and blah blah blah. So we didn't see it. It was a cold day, but it's a beautiful spot and just really rich in history. Beautiful wooded areas on the Delaware River, but very squatchy area. So I wanted to cover this area, and again, people have been requesting more Pennsylvania, so who am I to refuse? So let's get into some Bigfoot sightings in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So, as I always do, a little quick geography lesson here. Here is Bucks County in Pennsylvania. It is on the eastern side of Pennsylvania. It borders New Jersey. You can see Princeton here. If I zoom in a lot, you can really see Trenton here, like right on the other side of the river from Bucks County. And Philadelphia is here to the south, not too far. And right in the center here is Doylestown, which about a year ago, I did an episode on UFO sightings in Bucks County and specifically Doylestown. So you can go back and check that out. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But yeah, and this is Bucks County, and I'm just up here on Staten Island. So it's not too far from me. And like I said, Jersey's here. You kind of have the Pine Barrens down this way. But yeah, Philly, Trenton, Princeton, they're all right around here. And here's Doylestown. But Bucks County, some really interesting Bigfoot sightings. So let's get into those right now. Okay, so our first story, man has a late night road crossing encounter outside Levittown, and this is from February 25th of 2014, so wintertime, and a road crossing. I mean, these seem to happen so often. It's just fascinating to me. Location details, it was on Green Lane just before Mill Creek Road if you're driving away from Route 13. Nearest town is Levittown, nearest road is Green Lane, and observed. So the witness says, I was driving back from work late on Tuesday, the 25th of February, and I'll never forget what I saw. As I was driving down Green Lane towards Levittown, a giant creature that I can only describe as a Sasquatch. The creature was standing on 2 feet and had almost a human-like form, except for its nearly 9-foot stature, which is a bit tall for the East Coast. Usually we get into the 7-8 foot tall range, but 9 feet is pretty big. He continues, as it crossed in front of my car, I could see it more clearly in my headlights. It was a very dark brown, but it was more like hair than fur, which I found to be even stranger. So like a bear is going to have more fur. The hair, people on Bigfoot will usually talk about like the long, stringy hair. It's not fur that's close to the body. It's this long, stringy hair. So really interesting. He continues, it couldn't have taken more than 3 steps to completely cross the road. As I swerved, it was already nearly off the road. All I could see through my driver's window were what seemed to be piercing blue eyes that seemed to glow, though I could not differentiate if they were glowing or if it was a reflection of the moon. I'm going to go with the latter, and we'll get into that. I haven't been able to sleep much since. All I can think about is those piercing eyes. Once I found this website and read of the sightings, I knew I had to share what I saw. I've been looking online for another explanation, but I can't find anything. Also noticed everything about the situation was unusual. I still can't close my eyes without seeing the creature staring at me. Says he was driving by himself, not aware of any other stories, and says all my friends think I'm crazy, which again is a sad sort of byproduct of people witnessing these things, whether it's Bigfoot or UFOs or ghosts. The non-believers are going to call you crazy and laugh at you, and it's kind of sad because people have seen something. Even if you don't believe it was Bigfoot, they saw something that kind of spooked them. He says it was approximately 1 a.m., very cold, a wooded area off to the left, and a marsh-like area to the right. It was strange because it is a fairly developed area. So let us get into the follow-up investigation, and then I'll give my thoughts on this story. And the follow-up investigation report is done by BFRO investigator Dan F., who says, I spoke to this witness over the phone, and he set forth some additional details. The witness was coming back from a night construction job around 1 a.m., headed towards his home. He was traveling northwest on Green Lane, approximately 150 yards away from Mill Creek intersection. Up ahead, he saw an upright figure crossing the road from east to west, left to right. He stopped his vehicle about 15 feet from the creature as it walked across the road. The creature looked directly at the witness while only taking 2 strides to cross the road into the swamp, which that's crazy. The witness described the creature as approximately 9 feet tall, dark brown hair, about 3 to 4 inches in length. So like I said, it's not the fur, it's like this long, stringy hair. He described the face as dark colored, flat, with the distance between the eyes much greater than in humans, and dark, thick lips. The witness was disturbed by this encounter and called his roommate immediately upon returning home. He still has dreams and disturbed sleep about this encounter. He's an avid outdoorsman and simply cannot explain what he saw. The exact location of this sighting is situated in a swampy power line cutout that starts at a county park adjacent to Interstate 276, less than a mile away. This power line cut is also directly adjacent to Mill Creek and nearby Magnolia Lake. The location is certainly filled with food sources, and the power line cut makes for a quick and efficient travel route. The surrounding area is heavily populated with subdivisions and commercial space. So this is an interesting one, and there's aspects of this that I would like to talk about because, one, the power lines. We hear this all the time that these creatures, railroad tracks, power lines, the cutouts for the power lines, creeks, streams, rivers, marshes. So there's always water. There's always like sort of a cutaway through the woods, either train tracks, pipelines, power lines. Really interesting. And again, the water. I mean, this is near a marsh, and if it's a living creature, it needs water. It needs a food source. And where are you going to find food sources but near water? They're going to be stopping to get drinks. You're going to find fish. You're going to find frogs, rich with life. So I thought that was interesting. Another aspect, just the I hate to say it, but the standard nature of this, of just this road crossing, this creature just walking across the road at night, oncoming headlights, crosses in front of this car, crosses the road in 2 steps, and it's 9 feet tall. So this is a big thing. This is not a bear. A bear, even if it's standing up, is not going to cross a road in 2 steps. It's got stubby little legs. The picture's up there again for you. I don't think it's a man in a suit. Again, it wouldn't be 9 feet tall. You can have a guy in a ghillie suit, and people might misperceive something. You're a little spooked. It's late at night. You're tired. You might see something like that and be like, "Oh my God, that's big." And it could be a big guy in a ghillie suit, but a 9 foot tall person. And then again, stepping across the road in 2 steps doesn't really make sense. An interesting aspect of this to me, and this is something we don't hear a lot, is the color of the glowing eyes. I've heard green, I've heard amber and orange and red and yellow. I've never heard blue. And that's not to say it's not out there. I mean, I have not covered every single Bigfoot story ever. But in my 52 years on this planet, researching this, I don't think I've ever come across glowing blue eyes. I like that he admits that this is probably, glow from the moon, reflection from the moon, or his headlights. But either way, the blue, that's really interesting to me that it had blue eyes. Never heard that before, but everything else about this is pretty standard. And in the road crossings, I think it's sort of 50-50, whether they look at the car or the driver, or they just kind of cross the road and pretend not to see it. Like a lot of times we hear that where it's like, they'll say, "Oh, this thing didn't even acknowledge me. It just kind of was doing what it was doing. It's just crossing the road. And like, I wasn't even there." And then some people will say, "Yeah, this turned and looked at me and acknowledged me." So very strange. So that aspect is fine. The only weird thing about this is the blue eyes, but everything else, uh, good sighting here. I mean, he's getting a height. He's close to it. He's seeing it cross the road. He's getting a sense of the color of the hair. Really, really cool sighting here. Again, I don't know about the blue eyes. I don't know if the moon was that bright that night where it could have reflected its eyes. Headlights are probably, if it's eye shine, again, I don't know of many animals that have blue eye shine. Like I said, green, orange, yellow, amber, red. That's typically what we hear, not blue. So very cool sighting here. This is just, again, like I said, it sounds run of the mill. It's just run of the Mill Creek Road, if you will. um, just crossing the road in front of a car. And I've covered dozens of stories like this, and there's dozens and hundreds of them out there, but a good sighting, really good sighting. Again, he's an outdoorsman. He's going to know if this is a bear, if this is a man in a ghillie suit. He's losing sleep over this. He's still thinking about it to this day. When you see something like that and the trauma sticks with you, this is not a misidentification. You don't, you see something and you think it was something else. You can be like, oh, yeah, I remember that time I thought I saw Bigfoot, and you kind of laugh it off. But when it traumatizes someone like this, that makes me pay much more attention, because, especially an outdoorsman, guys like that are usually not afraid of what's in the woods. So, really cool sighting here. All right, story number 2. Bow hunter encounters strange creature near Argus, and this was October 24th of 2007. So we're talking the fall, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Sighting was on a pipeline that parallels Allentown Road in West Rock Hill. And like I said, pipelines, power lines, railroad tracks, these sort of man-made cuts through the wilderness. It seems like these creatures follow them. And again, it's the path of least resistance. Makes sense. So observed. He says, I was bow hunting on October 24th, 2007. Around 5:45 p.m., I saw a large Sasquatch-like man about 180 yards away walking away from me. He or she was clothed in all one color. He or she was close to 8 feet tall and extremely muscular. It was the color of dark rust. All I know is this was the scariest and most bizarre moment of my life. I climbed a small pine tree to get a better look, but he was gone. He or she disappeared after 3 or 4 steps. Says he was hunting alone. The environment, it was windy, it was brisk, still light out, at least enough to know I wasn't just seeing things. So it's fall. It's, probably like that twilight hour where it's not completely dark yet, but it's not bright and sunny either. So let's go to the follow-up investigation report by BFRO investigator Paul Conroy, who says, I interviewed this witness for approximately 1 hour by phone and found him to be articulate and sincere. He stated that he viewed the creature from a distance of 150 to 160 yards as it walked parallel to his location. He estimated the height between 6.5 inches to 6 to 7 feet. So maybe 6'5", 6'6" to 7 feet, based on his father's 6'1", 300-pound frame. Just trying to figure out what he's saying here. While he couldn't make out definitive facial features, which again, from that distance, you couldn't, he stated that the creature was a consistent color from head to toe and was either a large bipedal creature with dark rust-colored fur or a large man in a one-piece bodysuit trying to perpetrate a hoax. The witness considered the only 2 people that were aware of his location and phoned them to verify their location to confirm they were not playing a practical joke on him. So here's one that, there's interesting aspects of it. You have a hunter. So hunters are very good about knowing their environment, knowing what's out there, being familiar with the animals out there. That's what being a hunter entails. Those are the skills that a hunter needs. Silly that I have to go over this, but skeptics will come out and be like, oh no, he saw a bear. No, hunters know what bears are. He kind of goes back and forth between he and she, and I'm guessing it's just because he doesn't know whether it was male or female. He's saying it's extremely muscular, so I'm going to go for the male side. Dark rust color, so like a reddish brown, almost an orange. Saying it was scary for him. He's jumping up into this tree to get a better look. The distance is a factor. 150 to 160 yards. For people who are bad with distances, if you've ever watched a football game, end zone to end zone is 100 yards. That's 300 feet. So 150, you're talking 450 feet. Did I do my math right? Probably not, but math is hard. Anyway, 150 to 160 yards, you're talking a football field and a half. So, yeah, I don't blame him for not seeing details. You're not going to see facial features from that distance. You're going to see a shape. Just like, if you're looking at a football player 150 yards down the field, in the stands, like you're going to see that maybe there's something there. You're going to be able to tell color, basic shape. You're not going to see details. So I appreciate that he didn't embellish that. And he does admit, like, this was either, a large bipedal primate or a man in a suit trying to hoax. It doesn't sound like a ghillie suit. Ghillie suits are usually more camouflagey. They're greens and browns. They're not just all brown. You're trying to blend in with the bushes and trees. So it's, looks more like that. Is it possible? Of course, again, I like to talk about possibility versus probability. Anything's possible. It's possible that this was the pilot of a UFO from Zeta Reticuli. Possible. How probable is that? So, yeah, I don't know how probable it is that this is a man in a ghillie suit. And I always say this, like, if you're out hunting and you're in a ghillie suit, you're going to try not to stand up around other hunters because that's a good way to get an arrow or a bullet in you, because they see that movement and you're not wearing the blaze colors, you're going to get shot. So you would think that if this was a man in a ghillie suit, he's going to kind of be like, hey, don't shoot. I'm here. I need to, for whatever reason, I need to get up while there's a hunter over there. I don't know. Maybe he didn't see the hunter. So possibly a man in a ghillie suit. And again, this witness admits that that is a possibility. He checks with the other two people who know he's there. They're not hoaxing him. So this I call a good sighting, possibly a misidentification, but even the witness admits that. So, but yeah, it sounds like a big creature, and it fits a lot of the other descriptions, and considerations of like it's near a pipeline, it's while hunting. People see these things a lot while hunting. So really interesting. Okay, our next story. A woman describes a sighting in her teen years in Tohickon Valley State Park. And I hope I'm saying that right. I tried to figure this out, and Google kept trying to teach me how to say chicken, not Tohickon. But Pennsylvania is weird, so this might be like talking or something really weird. So Pennsylvania people, I apologize. I did try. So please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. If I got it right, give me the thumbs up. That Tohickon Valley Park. This is from August of 1968. So we're going back a ways. Summer. Location details. Tohickon Valley is a public state camping facility. It may or may not cause a problem if curiosity seekers come to check out the area and do some amateur investigating. It is near a tiny hamlet area for tourists, Point Pleasant. There's a rafting/canoe business, an antique store, and restaurant facility. So it sounds like a cute little tourist town. Nearest town is Point Pleasant. Nearest road is Tohickon Hill Road, and observed. So she says, here goes. I guess depending on how you look at it, I'm either the luckiest person where Bigfoot is concerned, or unfortunate in that coming forward in some people's eyes makes me either a storyteller or a nut. And we hear this constantly. We've heard it in the previous two stories. Other stories I've told on the channel. People get laughed at. People are disbelieved. And that is sad to me, and it's the reason why so many people won't come forward. It's the reason why so many people who I've invited to come on the show will not come on the show. They don't want their face seen, they don't want their voice heard. So sometimes I will read their stories, but it is so hard to get people to come on because they're afraid of not me laughing at them, but their friends, their family, their coworkers. Very sad. Anyway, she continues, my sighting occurred on a 1968 family camping trip near the Delaware River in Tohickon Valley campgrounds in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I was 16 years old. I rode my bike over to explore the newest camping area that was as yet unfinished. As I rode through a clearing down a dirt road, I had the unnerving feeling I was being watched from the bushes. I told myself that I was being silly and proceeded to ride into the entrance tree-covered area. So I always say, like, pay attention to your gut instincts. If you feel like you're being watched, you probably are. She continues, I noticed the new bathhouse, wanted to check it out, and parked my bike along a split rail fence. After finding the door locked, I turned around to go back to my bike, and that is when I saw it, not 8 feet away, the most frightening and butt-ugly creature I've ever seen. It was standing upright on the other side of the split rail fence. It had both hands on the top railing, all the while shifting its weight back and forth, rocking from side to side. I could clearly see the face in the sunlight, but details of the body were lost in the shadow of the shade of the trees, so she's seeing more of the silhouette of the body. It had a wild-eyed look upon its face, with the body language being restless. I must have been in shock as I calmly decided to get the heck out of there and back on my bike. When I got back to our campsite, I wanted to tell someone, but I didn't even believe what I had just seen. I had no point of reference except that it was about 5.5 feet tall and monkeyish looking, but not human. After I got home, I wanted to tell my mom or dad or neighbor, but was afraid they would make fun of me or think I was crazy. I kept asking myself how I was going to sleep, that it would cause me nightmares. So I decided then and there to put it out of my consciousness. Every time I thought how frightened I was, I pushed it out of my mind. So here again, we have someone who it's like traumatizing for them. They're having trouble sleeping. They're having bad dreams. They have to push it out of their mind because it affected them so deeply. This is not somebody who saw a bear or a deer that just looked, or a tree stump that looked like a monkey. This person saw something that freaked them out. She says, eventually I succeeded. Fast forward to 2002, and I find your BFRO website. It has taken me another 5 years to get up the courage to write this report. I never gave it much thought about Bigfoot and Washington, Oregon State, but it was interesting to see that this research was genuine and scientifically based. I was surprised to see so many reports here in PA. And I've mentioned that before too, that a lot of people, they think of Bigfoot, especially back then. I mean, nowadays, I think people realize that every state has Bigfoot sightings, but back in the 60s, I mean, this is like a year after the Patterson-Gimlin footage. I think most people just assumed that Bigfoot was a Pacific Northwest or Canada sort of thing, the Yeti over in the Himalayas. It really wasn't an East Coast thing. She continues, as I was reading about other sightings one night, the memory of that camping experience came flooding back with the realization that I had come face to face with a Bigfoot. Upon reflection, I now realize I've had 3 more encounters, 78 in Bucks County, 97 and 2005 in Berks County. She also is aware of another encounter 11 years later on another camping trip in the same area. So interesting. Also noticed she had another encounter about 11 years later on another camping trip in the same area. She was by herself. Other stories, she says, as a side note, on a prior camping trip, myself and some other kids were in the swimming pool registration area and asked if the hiking area behind the pool was open to campers. The lifeguard said yes, but warned jokingly, watch out for Bigfoot. I said, are you serious? The other lifeguard said that other campers had reported seeing a monkey creature down at the creek bed. I thought that was a cruel thing to spread unfounded rumors to scare campers. It angered me. Maybe after reading my report, other campers, park personnel, or local people might also come forward with their experiences. So yeah, we see this a lot where camp counselors, the adults will use these stories to scare the children. John and I did an episode a few weeks back about summer camp horror stories, and we mentioned this, like the Legends of Cropsey or the Maniac in the Woods. It's really to kind of scare kids because kids, when they go camping, they think bears are like big dogs. They think they're cute and cuddly, and they don't realize there's stuff in the woods that will hurt them. So they invent these stories, the maniac in the woods, or watch out for Bigfoot. That is much scarier than the cute, cuddly bear. So she says this was early afternoon. It was clear on a sunny, warm day. It is a forested area cleared out for a swimming pool facility and campground area. So again, not the deep, dark woods here. Really interesting. There's a follow-up investigation, doesn't say who conducted it, but they say, I spoke to the witness in great length on the evening of September 16th, 2007. She's now in her 50s, and she recounted the sighting in great detail. The following can be added in reference to the face of the animal. She says it had a round face with no hair. It looked like an ape. The skin color was not as dark as a gorilla, but not as light as a Caucasian person, so probably somewhere in between, like a tan or very light brown. The noise of the animal could not be made out as the witness was drawn to the eyes. The eyes were large, but in proportion to the head. They looked like the eyes of a primate with a white sclera and dark iris. The witness had the impression that this was a young male, surprised and excited when she noticed it. And I thought that too when I first read this. It sounds more like a juvenile. It's shorter. It's only 5.5 feet tall. So that's not even, there are adult males who are bigger than that, adult females who are bigger than that, human beings. So it's not a very big Bigfoot, but it's more the monkeyish aspect of it. The fact that it's holding onto the fence, it's got a monkey face. Really interesting. At 25 years of age, the witness returned to the area with her husband and mixed terrier dog that was very protective and aggressive at times. They were tent camping when the dog started to whimper. They then felt the ground begin to shake as if something large was passing near the tent. Shortly after this, they exited the tent to see what it could have been. They noticed what looked like a large man that apparently covered quite a bit of ground in a short period of time, moving through a high grass field, across a road, and heading into a cornfield. This took place between approximately 11:30 and 12 a.m. I asked the witness how this figure seemed to move. She replied by saying it was very fluid and swift. So again, a person in a suit is going to look like a person in a gorilla suit. They're going to be kind of awkward and clunky, not going to really have that fluid movement. It seemed to know where it was going and had no trouble traversing the rugged terrain in the dark. The witness could not help but think, why would another camper walk into a cornfield at that time of night? So yeah, they go back. The dog is alerting, and I always say, pay attention to your animals. Uh, so interesting that she had these two different encounters in the same spot, 25 years apart. Really interesting. I mentioned a few episodes ago about how we always seem to hear about boys on their bikes running into these creatures. I even did an episode from York County with a guy named Josh, who, when he was 16, riding his bike in Pennsylvania, came across a large hairy creature. But we hear this a lot with boys riding their bikes, but this is a girl riding her bike. So interesting. I like that. I like when, we kind of break out of the mold here a little bit. It does seem like a juvenile, 5.5 feet tall, monkeyish looking, but not human. And this is daytime. She's close to it. She's saying it's about 8 feet away. So it's not 150 yards. She's very close to this thing. She's not mistaking a bear. She's not mistaking a deer. This is probably not a man in a ghillie suit just hanging out. Again, is it possible that it's a hoaxer? Possibly, but I don't think so. Could it have been a camp counselor in a suit? Yeah, scaring the kids. Again, all these things are possible, but the face, and again, you're talking 68. Even today, the Bigfoot costumes are not great. Like, you're going to see it and you're going to be like, yeah, that's a man in a suit. That's not unless it's like Hollywood special effects, CGI, really, really expensive makeup. It's going to look like a man in a gorilla suit. And in 1968, you didn't even have Bigfoot suits because Bigfoot really wasn't a big thing at that point. So you're looking at a man in a gorilla costume, which is going to look like a gorilla costume. It's not going to look like what she's seeing. So again, a really interesting sighting. I love that she saw something again. They're camping again 25 years later, and her dog is alerting, and they get out of the tent and they see something walking into a cornfield. Just very strange behavior again for someone to be hoaxing. Just doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make sense. And usually if it doesn't make sense, it ain't true. So I'm going to go with she saw something that should not exist. Okay, so our penultimate story here. Camper sees ape-like animal in daylight. And again, we're hearing this ape-like, monkey-like. It's not people saying Bigfoot. It's more just, and again, what would it be? But they're saying, I just think it's interesting that they keep repeating this same sort of verbiage, ape-like, monkey-like. This happened July 10th of 1977, so summer, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Location details. Since it was so long ago and I live in California, I don't know, but my dad has a good memory, so if necessary, I can confer with him and we can figure it out. Nearest town was Quakertown. Nearest road, she says I would have to look at a map. I don't know. So this happened a while ago. She was 18. So she's not really remembering exactly where this was. I get it. You move, and there's places that I camped at when I was a kid. I don't remember the names. I don't remember where they were. I can see them in my mind. I just don't remember the name. So she says, it was the summer of 1977 and I was 18. My father and I were traveling across country as a graduation present. We camped off old logging roads and the like. We were camped on July 10th, 1977 off an old road near Quakertown, Pennsylvania. After we got our campsite set up, I went for a walk to have a cigarette. I went alone because my dad didn't know I smoked, or so I thought. It was about 3 p.m. and a bright sunny day. I was near a dried up riverbed. So again, river, like these pathways. When I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. When I looked to my right across the other side of the river or creek bed, I saw a large beige or light brown hair-covered man-like animal. It was crouching or sitting. I couldn't tell. It made no eye contact, but I knew it was moving out of sight because of me. It just slowly ambled into the bushes and out of view. I was scared to death. I ran back to where my dad was, and he followed me back to the site where I saw it. He noted a deep depression in the land where it had been crouching or laying, and he said the hair on the back of his neck raised up. But there was no further sign of the animal. She says, I remember it being unusually silent. The thing moved slowly and very quietly out of view. She says it was just herself. She was walking along, smoking a cigarette. She's not aware of any other stories, doesn't know of any from around there. She says it was about 3 p.m., bright and sunny day, bushy area with lots of blackberry bushes, a dried riverbed. There's a follow-up investigation here by BFRO investigator Jim Osborne, who says, in talking with the witness, she stated that calling it man-like in the report was wrong and that ape-like would be a better description, as it was very definitely apey. She also stated that the hair was a light brown, almost blonde, and it was 5 to 6 inches long. So again, the long hair, not the fur. The creature was in a crouched position and facing more or less toward her, but the face was angled away enough that she could not tell if it had less hair than the rest of the body. Even in the crouched position, it was still 4 to 5 feet tall. So this is an interesting one, and I'm not sure what to make of this one. She doesn't get a really good look at it. Uh, I got excited at first when I started reading it because she sees this thing crouching, and I'm like, here we go. It's going to stand up on 2 legs and walk off or run off, showing that it's definitely not a bear. And this one doesn't really do that. It kind of keeps crouching as it moves away, slowly ambles into the bushes and out of view. The only interesting thing is that she's saying it was a light brown or a beigey colored hair. And people hear black bear, and that's all they have in Pennsylvania is black bears. There's no grizzlies or anything like that. But people hear black bear and they think they have to be black, and they don't. They can be all different colors. They could be lighter browns. They could be rust colored, more reddish brown. Yes, the majority of them are just this dark black color, but you could have a beigey bear, So this one I'm a little bit on the fence about. Again, I like to defer to the witnesses. I like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they know what they saw. And this account is not too detailed. The follow-up investigation is not very detailed. But things about this one bother me a little bit in that she didn't really see the face. It didn't stand up and walk away. That for me is always the, the aha moment. The tree stump, the rock, the bear, the whatever it is that then stands up on 2 legs and walks off. That's really where I'm like, okay, this is not a misidentification because bears, rocks, tree stumps don't get up on 2 legs and just run away. But this doesn't do that. So I'm a little on the fence about this one. I mean, she was 18. I would, they've been camping. I would like to think she knows what a bear looks like. But I think if you have an odd colored bear that's not in the norm, and you're not really getting a good look at it, it could have been a bear. So kind of on the fence about this one. I'm leaning more towards misidentification, I think. But let me know what you guys think of this one. Because like I said, this is really, it could go either way for me. And I think just Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. I think I have to go for just an odd colored bear versus a primate. She says it was ape-like. And that bothers me but there's no explanation of that. There's no expanding upon that, what that means of ape-like. Everything she's describing in here sounds like it could have been a bear. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what made it ape-like to her. Witness, if you are watching my episode and you want to reach out to me, I would love to speak with you and get more information. Again, I'm not saying that you are wrong here. I'm just saying, as an outside observer, I have to kind of side with maybe this was a bear, but I am very curious about the ape-like features that struck her, where she had to say it was ape-like and not just a hairy animal. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this one. Okay, so our last story for the evening. This one's a little bit sad as one of the witnesses has since passed away, but an interesting story. Again, bow hunters, 2 teenagers encounter Bigfoot while bow hunting. And this took place in May of 1976. So in the spring, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He says, this is an extremely built-up area, easily accessed then and today. Interesting, though, almost unchanged since then and now. Nearest town is Levittown. Nearest road is Woodbourne Road. And observed, he says, well, I can't believe after all these years I'm doing this, but due to the recent tragedy, I have a new respect for how short life can be. And I think legitimate researchers need to hear about an extraordinary occurrence that happened in my life. I know even the most believing of you are going to think this is bullshit, but as the saying goes, truth is stranger than fiction. So he says, it was in 1976 in Levittown, Pennsylvania. My friend and I skipped school. I was 16. We were going to hunt the Tohickon property with bows. And again, I hope I'm saying that properly. This actually is the most incredible part of this. The Tohickon property is located in the middle of Levittown, the model for suburbia. The property was a fenced in area with barbed wire enclosure about a mile square each way with a road on the perimeter that armed guards would patrol. So seems like a pretty secure, civilized area. So my friend and I played commando, sneaking under the fence with dirt on our faces, wearing camo shirts. We did this because it was the only place to hunt or trap, and the property was excellent. Swamps, ravines, flat fields at the top, heavy old woods, great diversity. By the way, I don't know if this is the info you want, but I think you need to know this because I think it's pertinent. So he's trying to set the scene here. It's, a private land, but still kind of woody and wild. Anyway, we snuck in and were hunting squirrels with bows. My friend just shot one out of a tree and was bending down to cut off its tail when I was looking out for the guys in the Jeeps, a Bigfoot. It was really close, about 100 to 120 feet away. It was just standing there with one arm holding onto a piece of tree, chewing it. I've since come to realize after seeing a cow, it was chewing it like an ungulate, side to side. It was eating it, chewing and biting off new pieces. I was frozen with fear. So again, this is not a fleeting glimpse. He's seeing this thing kind of, eating and gnawing away at something in its teeth. Really, really strange. He was frozen in fear. My friend was busy with the squirrel, so I watched it for 20 seconds, question mark. It doesn't sound long, but it seemed like forever. And yeah, it's like pick something in your home and just stare at it for 20 seconds. 20 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but if you're just staring at something, you're going to get a lot of detail from that. I got an excellent look at it. 7 foot tall, maybe just a little more, reddish brown hair. So we're hearing that a lot tonight. The reddish brown, rusty brown. The hair was 3 to 4 inches long. We've heard that too, 3 to 4 inches, maybe 5 inches. So not super long, but that 3 to 5 inch length. Interesting. The thing I remember most was the face because it was eating. I guess it looked almost human if it wasn't so tall and covered with hair. It could have been some deformed person. I thought a cross between a gorilla face and a human with big lips, flattened, tight nose. I'm not going to read this. It's a little derogatory, and he admits that. It just stood there looking at us. I grabbed my friend and yelled, "Look." He got up and picked up the bow and arrow and said we were going to be rich. He was going to kill it, which with a bow and arrow, I doubt. I looked back at it. It still didn't move, especially they're hunting squirrels. Like whatever ammo they're using is not going to bring down an 8 foot tall Bigfoot. It didn't move a muscle. It showed no fear at all. Completely calm, kept chewing. Anyway, it was like somehow telepathically talked to me and said, if you hurt me, I'm going to kill you both. So here we have the mind speak, the telepathy. I'll get into that after this. I'm just recounting his story. I freaked out and started screaming, "It's going to kill us. It's going to kill us," and grabbed the bow out of his hands. We then turned and ran for our lives. We told our parents, who said, quote, "What are you guys smoking?" Anyway, because of the unbelievable circumstances, mainly this was a chemical plant with armed guards, we thought maybe the government was involved or something, and we didn't tell anyone for years. I have talked to someone who worked there at the time, and they said they did work for the government, jet fuel additive. When I told her about Bigfoot, she laughed and said they had no Bigfoots. I thought maybe it was a captured one, trained or something. So again, he's trying to figure out, like, why is there this Bigfoot not deep in the woods, but on this like chemical plant facility? Since they had armed guards patrol, only plausible explanation I've come up with is a person dressed up in a Hollywood quality Bigfoot costume to try to scare us away. That doesn't explain the telepathic encounter. I think I spent a long time trying to rationalize this and haven't come up with any reasonable explanation. Interesting story. I really want to pick this one apart. Other witnesses, he says, it was just his friend and him. Unfortunately, my friend was killed in a motorcycle accident some years ago. This is why I've never said or written about it, because I'm the only witness now. It exposes me to additional skepticism and ridicule. We're hearing this again a lot tonight, just people being afraid, people being ridiculed, made fun of, not believed. It's sad. Other stories is no, for this to occur here makes absolutely no sense. The area is totally built up. There's no wilderness. Time and conditions, late morning, 11 to 12 on a warm, nice day. Says it was on a hill. There's a creek, as we are due to expect now, on the bottom of the other side of this fence. Good old-fashioned growth on the hill, big trees with scrub, small trees, and open patches interspersed. So maybe not deep wilderness, but this isn't downtown Manhattan either. So it's possible. There's a short follow-up investigation here by Jim Osborne again, who says, when I talked with the witness, he said there were several things that struck him at the time before the telepathic incident. First was how human-like the creature was, despite the hair and the large size. and its utter calmness as it looked at him and continued to nibble on leaves. Most striking about its features were its penetrating eyes, which conveyed an attitude of extreme confidence. He was also puzzled by the fact that despite its nearness and the length of time he observed it, he was totally unable to determine its sex. I asked whether both he and his friend received the telepathic message, and he replied that it was only him. Okay, so a lot to unpack here. This is two teenage boys cutting school to go squirrel hunting in this land that is owned by a chemical plant. So not deep, deep in the woods. Really interesting. They see this creature, and it's just eating something, a twig or a branch from a tree. I don't know what it's chewing. Piece of tree, he says. I don't know if it's a piece of bark. I don't know if it's a branch, and he's pulling the leaves off it. Just side to side, really interesting. The thing just looks at them. It doesn't seem to react. It's making eye contact. And again, in so many of these stories, we hear that these things will bare their teeth. It'll growl, it'll hiss, it'll huff and puff. We talked about that a little bit last week, the huffing and the puffing. Or it'll wander off. It'll either walk off briskly, it'll run off, it'll shake a tree, it'll howl, it'll do something. This is odd that it's just like staring at them. He gets a good look at the face. He says it's a cross between a gorilla and a human with like a flattened nose. So kind of like a gorilla. His friend takes his bow and arrow that they're hunting squirrels, which are very small, and aims it at this thing, saying, we're going to kill it. We're going to be rich. Like, we're going to get this thing. The mind speak, the telepathy. I get a little on the fence about this because I just wonder sometimes if the mind speak or telepathy is more just the human natural instinct kicking in, which is instinct. It is subconscious. It is unconscious. It is not something that we are actively thinking of. It's just something in our brains that is like, don't do this. I don't know if it's the creature saying, if you do this, I will kill you, or if it's his instinctual unconscious saying, if you attack this thing with a bow and arrow that we're hunting little squirrels with, this thing will kill us. Like, it's not doing anything to us right now, but if we attack it, and that's like with any animal, if you see a bear and you're throwing rocks at it, it might come after you. You're antagonizing it. Don't poke the bear. Don't shoot the Bigfoot with tiny little arrows. Just doesn't make sense. And again, I don't want to dismiss this witness's testimony. I wasn't there. I didn't experience it. To me, the mind speak telepathy thing is interesting, and I do like researching it and talking about it. But as a psychologist, as someone who has a psych degree, as someone who knows a little bit about how the human brain works, I tend to think a lot of the mind speak is more just instinct and the reptilian parts of our brain just being like, don't do that. That is stupid. It will kill you. It's not necessarily the Bigfoot saying, if you shoot me, I will kill you. I think if the Bigfoot wanted to convey that, it would bare its teeth and growl and, it's going to try to scare these kids to run away. It's not going to go, with my mind, I'm just going to do this. Again, not trying to take away from what he experienced. I believe he experienced what he says he experienced. I'm just wondering if it was telepathy or if it's more just something in the recesses of the brain saying, don't do that. It will kill us. It's not bothering us. Let's not bother it. Sad that his friend passed away. Sad that he doesn't want to open himself up to skepticism and ridicule. And, skepticism is healthy. We all need to have healthy skepticism. That doesn't mean that he's lying. That doesn't mean we don't believe him. I'm by no means ridiculing him either. I think he saw what he says he saw, and it's really fascinating to me. Again, I just have a different take on the telepathy. Again, not saying he didn't experience that. I just think there's a different explanation for it. Just my 2 cents, if it's worth even that. But that's just my take on it. That's what I do. I analyze these stories. I try to give different points of view, just because we need to think critically about these things. We can't just take every story of Bigfoot and every photo with a red circle in it. Hi, Jay. To say, oh my God, that is Bigfoot. If you got to zoom in 6,000 times, and if you look at these 3 pixels here, that's definitely Bigfoot carrying a baby with blue eyes. Like, no, like we have to question things. We have to think critically, and that's how we get to the truth. And again, I put these things out there I've had witnesses from the BFRO, stories I've covered, reach out to me privately and give me more detail and explain things to me that are not on the site. And that is awesome because that's what I want. I want more information. We should all want more information. Questioning things doesn't mean we don't believe the witnesses. It doesn't mean we're ridiculing. It just means, hey, I'd like to know more about this. Like the previous story, I want to know more about what she meant by ape-like. What does that look like to her? Was it the face? Was it the way it moved? Was it the hair? What about it was ape-like? Just saying is ape-like doesn't really help me or any other, objective observer. So that's where we're at. But this is a creepy story. This is not a typical Bigfoot sighting due to the location, due to how this thing was acting. It's just not typical. And I like that, it's great. But I have a lot of questions about this one. But I think a good sighting. It's daytime. They're getting a good look at it. They're not too far from it. He's looking at this for 20 seconds while it's eating. That's not a cow. That's not a bear. I don't think it's a crazy person. He's saying maybe this is like a man. Um, I, I can't see a man just fully covered in hair doing that. Possible? Yeah, very possible. But who knows? It's a chemical factory. Who knows? But let me know what you guys think of this one. I'm very curious to hear people's thoughts on this one because this is a weird one. All right, everybody, that wraps it up for Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania, Bucks County. Love Pennsylvania. Again, I promised to show my shirt here that I'm wearing. This Rebecca got for me from Knoebels. I couldn't go this year to Knoebels. I've gone the past few years with her, and I really missed it this year. It's their 100th anniversary. She got me 2 shirts. I'll feature the other one on a future episode, but this one just says around the campfire, and it's Bigfoot, an alien, and a bear sitting around a campfire, and it says Knoebels Campground, Elisburg, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Rebecca, for the t-shirt. We have to question everything. Like I said, question everything, everybody. What was being seen here? I think these are all good sightings. Some of them have me a little baffled. So I would love to discuss these things with you in the comments below. But a lot of consistency too. The reddish brown, the beige, the light brown. Like we're hearing a lot of that. Not so much of like the dark black. Is it possible that one person saw a bear that was a weird color? Yeah. Everybody seeing a bear that's a weird color? Not so much. 9 feet tall, crossing the road in 2 steps. I mean, these are just really good sightings. So I appreciate those. If you guys have a state, county, city that you want me to cover, whether it's for Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings, urban legends, paranormal legends, shoot me an email, jason@oddanduntold.com. I'm happy to do viewer requests, audience requests. I did one last week for West Virginia. That was for Mary Crouch. And if you guys want me to cover anything, let me know. If you have a story you want to share, you could drop it in the comments. I'll read it on a future episode. You can email me directly if you like, if you want to keep it more private. I don't have to read it on the air if you don't want me to at that point. But I do love hearing people's stories. If your story was covered on this episode, I'd love to hear from you. Again, I've had people in the past who said, hey, you covered my BFRO story and you did a great job. And again, people appreciate, I think, the healthy skepticism, but the open-mindedness. I've never gotten an angry email from anybody about that. So I think the witnesses are even usually questioning what they saw, even if they know what they saw. They're like, I saw Bigfoot, but they're still just kind of, why did I say Bigfoot and why does it exist? And they still have questions. So we have to be questioning everything. So yeah, until next time, everybody, embrace the weird, sit around the campfire with Bigfoot and aliens and tan colored bears. And until next week, everybody, rock and roll.